like to start by acknowledging that we are conducting this meeting using a remote electronic platform. I would ask for your patience today as we proceed. There may be slight delays as we transition between speakers, participants, and presentations. The Commission is charged to provide guidance, advice, and recommendations regarding the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the City of Raleigh. The members of the Commission represent a varied field of expertise and interest in the quality of design in Raleigh. I'd like to go ahead and ask staff member Carter Pettibone to briefly explain for the participants how we will be conducting today's meeting. Carter?
Thank you. Today's meeting will proceed very similar to a regular meeting with a few minor adjustments. If at any time a participant has issues with the technology, please send a message to the moderator. Aaron Morton is the moderator for this meeting. The chat function has been disabled for all participants and commission members, except for the ability to message her if you have technical difficulties. For each alternate case, city staff member will provide a brief introduction and presentation. The applicant will then be acknowledged to present their case and have 15 minutes to do so. Speakers for the applicant are asked to provide their name and address for the record. Following the presentation, the commission members will be given an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant staff. The commission will then hear from any other participants who would like to speak on the request. When all comments from the applicant staff and other participants are complete, the commission chair will bring the item back to the table for deliberation. The commission members will then deliberate on the item and review the findings listed in the applicable section of the UDO. Following deliberation, the commission chair will ask for a motion, which will take the form of a recommendation to the planning director for action on the request. The motion can be a recommendation for approval with conditions, or denial. The commission may also vote to defer the case to the next regular meeting, typically in order to receive additional information. And the commission will vote on the request. As always, if you don't have your camera on and you plan to speak, please introduce yourself again, say who you are. I will now turn back over to the commission chair to conduct the administrative alternate reviews.
Thank you, Carter. And we will now hear the cases in order in which they appear on the agenda. I will note one change on the agenda. The applicant for AAD 8-21, that was the second one, has requested to be removed. That item from the agenda, so we will not discuss it this evening. So first up is case AAD 7-21. That's 416 Oberlin Road. I will go ahead and give it over to Charles for the staff presentation.
Thank you, Corey. There is going to be one additional potential agenda change. There was a staff oversight in the application. The applicant also requested two alternates for this case. The staff report that you have addresses the build to alternate. They actually requested another alternate for pedestrian street-facing entrances, and I can, Corey, if you guys want to discuss how you want to proceed with this one. You don't have a staff report for this. I can read you the intent and the findings for pedestrian entrance spacing, and you can address the proposed alternate. It is fairly straightforward. If you'd like, I can go ahead and read. We can address the build to alternate first, and then if you would like, we can get to the pedestrian issue after that.
That sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So looking here. This first alternate is A8721 416 Oberlin Road, located at Oberlin Road and Cameron Street. This is the request for alternate to build to 1.56. Build to is the area on the lot where a certain percentage of the front principal building facade must be located, measured as a minimum and maximum setback range from the edge of the proposed or existing right-of-way, whichever is greater. 2, the required percentage specifies the amount of the front building facade that must be located in the build to, measured based on the width of the building divided by the width of the site or lot. I'm going to read the intent. Number 1, the build to is intended to provide a range for building placement that strengthens the street edge along the right-of-way, establishing a central enclosure by providing spatial definition adjacent to the street. 2, the building edge can be supplemented by architectural elements and certain tree plantings aligned in a formal rhythm. The harmonious placement of buildings to establish a street edge is a principal means by which the character of an area or district is defined. 3, the build-to range is established to accommodate some flexibility in specific site design while maintaining the established street edge. I'm just going to read the first requirement from Part C, as this is a corner lot. On corner lots, a building facade must be placed within the build-to for the first 30 feet along the street extending from the block corner. All right, now I'm going to read a brief sort of description of the site in the proposal. The applicant is proposing to develop a new bank branch building on Overland Road within the village district. The parcel was most recently occupied by a McDonald's. Property is in commercial mixed use, 5 stories, urban general frontage. The urban general primary street build-to is 0 to 20 feet, 70% of which must be occupied by building width. Both Overland Road and Cameron Streets are designated as primary streets here. The corner build-to requirement, the buildings be placed in the first 30% of the build-to from along the street, extending from the block corner applies to the building. The building occupies the build-to on Overland Road that only covers 39% of the required length. And the building does not occupy the Cameron Street build-to. As an alternative design, however, the applicant proposes amenity area along each block face at lengths sufficient to meet the coverage width requirement when combined with building length. I'd be happy to answer any questions for staff at this time if you have them.
Are there any commission members have any questions for Charles at this point or staff?
Corey, this is Carter. Do you want us to talk about the non-street fronting entrance? We can pull that up.
Yeah, I think we should talk about it all at the same time here.
Okay. Do you see this in front of you, the pedestrian access?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. So the pedestrian access alternate request relates to the lack of a pedestrian access point on Cameron Street. So that's what this one is about. So the intent of 1.58 pedestrian access, the street-facing entrance regulations are intended to concentrate pedestrian activity along the street edge and provide an easily identifiable and conveniently located entrance for residents, visitors, and patrons accessing a building as pedestrians from the street. 2, access points should be located or identified in a manner visible to the pedestrian from the street and be accessible via a direct path. I'll read the general requirements. An entrance installed after September 1st, 2015, providing both ingress and egress operable to residents or customers at all times is required to meet the street-facing entrance requirements. Additional entrances from other street, pedestrian area, or internal parking areas are permitted. The entrance spacing requirements must be met for each building, but are not applicable to adjacent buildings. 3, an angled entrance may be provided at either corner of the building along the street to meet the street-facing requirements. The administrative alternate findings are as follows. Number 1, the approved alternate meets the intent of the street-facing entrance. I guess these are for you to read. I won't read through these, but that is the nature of that request.
Any questions from the commission for as far as the pedestrian access requirements or anything from staff?
One question, Corey, does that pedestrian access, does it differentiate between the primary facing street or secondary at all?
I understand, Charles, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but both of these streets are considered primary streets. Is what you're saying? Correct.
Yep.
So both facades would be required to have this, and that's where they're lacking, it sounds like, on Cameron, but we'll take a look. All right, if there's no further questions, I will go ahead and turn it over to the applicant to go ahead and speak. Is that you, Michael? Mr. Birch?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bates. This is Michael Birch, Longleaf Law Partners, 4509 Creedmoor Road, Suite 302. With me this afternoon is Diana Howe, professional engineer with Kimley Horn and Associates, as well as Matt Gross, landscape architect with Kimley Horn, both of whom are involved with the project. And so I'm going to turn it over to Diana first to kind of walk through the site plan, speak to kind of the build to request and the pedestrian entrance request. Then Matt Gross will step in and talk about the landscape plan, particularly for those amenity areas that we're utilizing in lieu of build to. And then I will kind of just finish up and close on the findings. So this time we'll just turn it over to Diana Howell with Kimley Horn.
Thank you for that. Diana Howell with Kimley Horn, 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600, Raleigh 27601. Thank you. This afternoon, I just wanted to start by covering the context of the existing site. So the existing development at Oberlin and Cameron is the vacant McDonald's building that is located within the center of the existing parcel and is surrounded by parking up close to, oh, thank you, perfect. Parking is close to both Cameron Street and Oberlin Road. I also want to point out that the existing site has poor pedestrian connections to the building from both Oberlin and Cameron. Now, to provide some context for the surrounding area, and you can leave this screen up, this is perfect. So buildings along Oberlin Road are primarily brought up to the street with no parking between the building and the street. The exception is the Harris Teeter that is on the opposite side of this photo across Cameron Street. Buildings along Cameron Street are typically set back from the street, separated by a double loaded bay of parking. Exceptions include the retaining wall for the Harris Teeter that is across Cameron Street, which supports the parking lot, and the retaining wall inside of the Starbucks building. We are proposing, if you switch back to the build to exhibit, we are proposing a building that is located close to Oberlin Road, providing landscaped amenity area adjacent to the public realm along Cameron Street with no parking between the building and the streets, with enhanced pedestrian connections between the building and the public sidewalks. The proposed approximately 2,800 square foot building is a modified Chase Bank building footprint that includes already an additional entrance along Oberlin Road. The proposed building is within that build to range along Oberlin Road, which is consistent with the other developments. Due to the building size and shape, full compliance with the build to regulations along Cameron Street cannot be met, but areas that would have otherwise been occupied by buildings will be converted to an outdoor amenity area. You can see that amenity area highlighted with the green hatching on the screen. I want to point out that the site layout is compliant with the urban general frontage requirements for parking locations. There's no on-site parking or vehicular surface area between the building and either Oberlin or Cameron streets. This is an improvement from the existing condition on site. We are proposing to maintain the existing access points off of Oberlin Road and Cameron Street. We are not increasing the number of access points, but we are maintaining the existing drives there. Pointing out that the bank is providing 3 points of access to the building, 2 of which are public entrances. One is located on the west, connected to Oberlin Road by a sidewalk. And then one is on the east side of the building that is facing the parking area, and also has a sidewalk connection that connects an accessible path of travel to Cameron Street. And then the other access point is on the south side of the building. This is an employee-only access. Adding an additional entrance along Cameron Street would be a security issue for the bank. Within the amenity area or along the Cameron Street frontage, you'll see that we are proposing along the sidewalk 4 short-term bike parking spaces with 2 sets of bike racks there. And then there's also Exactly. That rectangular piece that's right there is a bike locker that will account for 2 long-term bike parking spaces. There are an additional 2 long-term bike parking spaces within the interior of the building. The alternates that we're requesting meet the intent of the Build to regulations, and they do not negatively alter the character of Cameron Street. We are providing that amenity space where a building footprint would have been to meet the Build to regulations. We are providing this landscape area. I will then turn it over now to Matt Gross to speak to the proposed plantings within that amenity area.
Thank you, Diana. My name is Matt Gross, landscape architect with Kimley Horn, 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600, Raleigh, North Carolina. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to paint a picture for you guys without you all being able to see it. But the landscape plan for which Diana was speaking about provides the code minimum and then goes above and beyond what's required according to the City of Raleigh's UDO. Specifically located within these amenity areas, as we're abutting the public right of way, we really wanted to propose plant materials which complement the existing plant materials along Cameron and Oberlin Streets and Road. And so by doing that, we have, first of all, we have maintained all of the existing street trees and are proposing to protect them in place. We have also promoted there on the corner where there is a wall. Would you mind switching to the image? There is, thank you. So we've got the 2 crepe myrtles there as a backdrop to the monument wall, and what we're proposing to place behind those are 3 cherry trees. So they will not get too large in stature, but they will fit well behind those trees in between the building face as well as the existing plant material. Additionally, around the entire building facade, we are proposing 2 to 3 rows of shrubs to soften the building face, but also improve the aesthetic as you walk along the sidewalks along Cameron Street and Oberlin Road. Mostly using evergreen species so that there is full year-round interest. We are intermixing some deciduous plant materials within the plant palette across the site, but for the most part, we are framing all of those deciduous plant materials with evergreen species in order to ensure 365 days of foliage. Additionally, as we've provided the sidewalks to and from the site, both to Cameron Street and Oberlin Road, we have framed those sidewalks with plantings to also improve the experience throughout those amenity areas.
Great, thank you, Matt and Diana. And I also just want to note, if you could go back to the Build to exhibit for just a moment. There's that area to the north of the building that's kind of close to the intersection and along Cameron Street. As part of the ownership group's change from Cameron Village to Village District, they have been working with Friends of Oberlin on a public art installation opportunity there to recognize the Oberlin Village history. And so that area is kind of being held out as and preserved as that kind of opportunity there. Again, we've kind of got we're showing some landscaping in that area right now, but if things continue to go the way that they are, we would anticipate having a public art installation in that area. So just to touch on the findings both for Build to and the pedestrian the street facing entrance. So first for build two, relative to Cameron Street. And I do want to note also, we have that request for the corner build two. The text change that was adopted by council this past Tuesday, although it's not effective for 30 days, kind of allows a by right location of amenity area to satisfy that corner build to. But since it's not effective for another 30 days, we're kind of still moving forward with that request. So from an intent standpoint, again, one of the intent statements is to strengthen the street edge along the right of way. Again, we're doing that along Overland Road with the building, supplementing with landscaping there behind the streetscape along Cameron Street. Again, providing that heavier landscaping. We are removing the parking between the building and the road that exists there today. And we're providing kind of a direct, accessible, pedestrian connection to kind of all parts of the building. From a comp plan standpoint, again, the staff report does a great job of outlining some of the applicable policies. So we'll go to finding number 3, which is that the alternate does not substantially negatively alter the character defining street wall. As Diana pointed out earlier, I mean, really along Cameron Street, all the buildings are separated by at least a double loaded bay of parking, except where you have the retaining wall for the Harris Teeter parking area or the kind of inactive side wall of the Starbucks building. And so we think we're providing, while not a building, a much softer and kind of heavily landscaped area, which is contributing more than what's currently there surrounding. And again, we are bringing the building closer to Overland Road, consistent with the built environment in that area. And again, we've identified kind of how we're providing pedestrian access, again, straight from Overland Road, and then the accessible route from Cameron Street. Regarding the pedestrian street-facing entrance, in lieu of providing one on the Cameron Street-facing side, we are providing it on the east-facing side that's directly accessible from the parking lot. That entrance will have kind of an identifying awning that'll kind of make it prominent and visible, certainly from the parking lot, but also from Cameron Street, particularly for those pedestrians walking west on Cameron Street. So part of the intent statement is to provide that easily identifiable entrance. Again, we're doing that through architecture, also that pedestrian entrance and accessibility, that direct path. It is, again, easily identifiable by pedestrians and certainly the visitors that are parking there in that parking lot. We have the projecting kind of building element for that entrance, and we're providing that safe, convenient, direct pedestrian path from Cameron Street. So appreciate y'all's time. And again, our whole team is here for any questions the commission may have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's definitely a huge improvement on what is there today. So we appreciate that. Yeah, are there any questions from the commission for the applicant? I guess my first question is maybe Diana, you can tell us a little bit more about the program of the building on the north side. Is that for the bank? Understand that it's, you have it's a small building. So, having 2 entrances is typically plenty. I'm just wondering if there's something there that on the inside that makes that not doable for that area.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. So I mentioned this briefly, but the footprint that we're showing for the bank building is actually a slightly smaller building footprint that fits well within the context of this parcel, just due to some of the setbacks and the limitations that are placed on site. With respect to internal to the building, by providing the standard facilities have already been decreased by an office or two because of adding the additional entrance that is not typical for the building footprint. The entrance I'm talking about is the one on Oberlin Road. And so the entrance or adding an entrance along Cameron Street would eliminate several offices internal to the building, as well as I mentioned in previously, because of all of the points of access already, there would be a security issue with adding an additional public door to the building.
Thank you. But that would be office space. It's not a vault or something like that. So there will be windows and stuff out to that kind of landscaped area.
Correct. Not a vault. And yes, we are, as Matt discussed, we have softened that exterior with all of that landscaping provided at that corner.
Yeah.
Corey, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
It may be on the plan. I'm not sure if I can see it, but what's the difference in the finished floor elevation of the building in relationship to Oberlin Road?
Good question. So along Oberlin Road, the building is set to be close to the elevation of Oberlin Road. I believe there may be a foot difference, but we're trying to maintain that connectivity of the pedestrian access on Oberlin Road. Cameron Street, as you know, the grade is significant as you drive eastbound on Cameron Street. So the building is up close on Oberlin Road rather than closer to the elevation of Cameron.
Somewhat related question. How's the ADA access work to the north amenity space? Is that coming off the sidewalk?
Correct. So to the north, due to the grades on site and the grading along Cameron Street, where it dives down at a fairly steep slope from Oberlin along Cameron Street further to the east. And so you see that we've provided a sidewalk connection that runs along those front head-in parking stalls. And then there is an accessible ramp up to the building. So there are stairs provided. Exactly. So if you...
I was going to say, come on down, the ramp is actually below, right?
Correct. So correct. The ramp access is further south, and then you ramp back up to the building itself. And again, that's due to the existing grading in this area. In order to maintain that accessible connection, the ramp does need to be that extensive in order to maintain the building facade up close to the existing elevation on Oberlin.
To access the green space to the north, because if I'm thinking correctly, that has to be ADA accessible. So that would be coming off the sidewalk along Oberlin.
Sorry, can you repeat the question there?
So the amenity space itself has to be ADA accessible, unless I'm mistaken. But so I'm just trying to understand where that access would happen from. It sounds like it would happen from the sidewalk along Oberlin because of the grade change on Cameron.
Yes, the usable amenity space would be accessed off of Oberlin. You could also maintain access, although it would not be ADA accessible from that Cameron Street. But the grading is as such within that landscaped area to be a softened grade, but we're limited, the accessible pedestrian path to the building is as extensive as it is due to maintaining one elevation for the building itself.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, being none, I understand that there's nobody from the public wishing to speak tonight. Am I correct with that? Carter?
Correct.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I will go ahead and close this and open it up for discussion amongst the commission. I'll just say that I think that again, I think it's a huge improvement with the build too from what is there today. I think with the standard kind of footprint of a standard bank branch, I think they've done a good job kind of nestling it in there. I like the idea of this kind of opening it up and doing this kind of heavier landscaped area. It is the entrance. We saw the sign there to the village, what was Cameron Village signage there. And as far as the pedestrian access, I was kind of asking, I think with the windows and with kind of such a small facade along Cameron Street, I'm trying to think, there really isn't anywhere along Cameron Street that you would walk and not visibly see an entrance. So, that really doesn't bother me. Yeah, again, they have 3 entrances already on this building, so look for any other thoughts, feedback.
Yeah, I'd agree. The pedestrian entrances seem to be working fine. I do feel like with the build to, if we're going to rely on landscape and plantings to be holding that street edge, I think I'd like to see a little more detail, or just, the description was great, but I think I probably need more visuals to kind of understand the spacing of the plants, the size, species, to really kind of paint that picture.
I think that's a good point. I'm having a hard time understanding if it's all really a landscaped area per se, or in lieu of an amenity area, and we're just calling it an amenity area, or is it, is there kind of both? And I'm having a hard time understanding that as well. So I think that's a good point.
This is William. I would agree with Martha. And I guess part of it is also kind of up in the air as far as figuring out if the public art piece is going to be going there too as well. But it would just be nice to see more detail about what's actually going there, if that's going to be what's right on the street edge.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I do agree that it is an improvement, especially on Oberlin Road, and I think in concept, most of it, or whoever's really spoken feels good about the approach, but there is some detail, just understanding what that elevation might look like, even if it's just sketched, where does the landscape start and end, and where is the building, and those questions about like what you see along that edge and the entry might be helpful.
Any other thoughts, comments? One thing we can do is, Carter, can you give us, or staff, can you give us an idea of where this, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, are we holding anything up in the process here I don't really like to hold these over if we don't have to, but would it cause any issues if we were to defer this for a month, give them adequate time to come back with a little bit more landscape, kind of some better idea what that corner is?
Yeah, Corey, I'm not sure. Part I don't know if you know where they are. It might be a question for the applicant.
Maybe we can ask,
Yeah.
Mr. Birch.
Yes, and I'll let Diana chime in as well, but this is I think a tier 1 site plan, and so it's a kind of SPR and building permit process, and so this is kind of the last item that we're waiting on in order for approval, and so certainly a month would be very impactful. I will say Matt might be able to, again, we have a detailed landscape plan. I'm sorry, it didn't get it to Carter in time for it to be part of the presentation, but we do have Matt on that maybe can give a little more detail. Again, it's going to have to be narrative, but it is a landscaped area, not kind of just just a grassed area. And so he's available to address that. And again, I'll ask Diana if she wants to add anything else onto kind of the process side of things and where they are.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. So we have cleared all of our comments with the exception of the build to and the primary street frontage. So these are the last items that are holding us up from submitting back in for signature set approval.
Thank you for that.
Corey, this is William. I mean, like, I get it and I agree with you. I don't want to hold these people up for no reason, but it seems like that's a legitimate concern for several of us to actually see what's there. And I'm not suggesting that we need to do that just to hold them up for no unjust reason. However, I would say that to the point that Martha made, I mean, if this is going to be the thing that's going to hold the street edge, it's nice when people don't just include the bare minimum of drawings that are shown. If I was the firm that was doing this and this was going to be my project, I would have made sure to have the drawings that show the elevation to actually show what the stuff's going to look like. And I think for us to just take a narrative would be a mistake, personally. Yeah.
Hey folks, this is Adam. I have to agree. It's just there's not enough here to really understand what's happening for this request. Wish that planting plan would have made it into the set.
Adam and Martha, from a landscape architecture perspective, do you think there's any way we could do, you know, conditions of height or anything like that, or do we really, like, is it very important to see the species before we approve something?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think through our options.
Yeah, personally, unfortunately, I think that would kind of get into more direction than we can really give as a commission. I think, you know, getting into spacing and height and stuff is probably not where we want to be directing. I think it would just be easier to see it in the plan.
I'm agreeing with you. And I think you made a great point, Martha, about just access as well. So it's not just landscaping and, you know, what is the amenity? What that's one question. What is it? But how do you access it as well? So I think I know, it sounds like we know where we're heading with this. I guess.
Corey, this is Michael. I mean, I would ask, we have all of the information and images ready. And so would ask, you know, if it's at all possible to, you know, we can send this y'all, you know, after this meeting, and if it's at all possible to address this at the June 3rd meeting.
Yeah, and typically we hold those meetings for our quasi judicial. Carter, can you remind me what we have lined up for a June 3rd meeting? Could we do I believe we have a quasi judicial, do we not?
Yes, you have two items on the agenda for the quasi judicial portion. You know, I think as staff, we strongly encourage you not to mix the two types.
Right.
But if you think it's important enough to kind of run against that and have that at this meeting, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. I would just encourage that we need this information as soon as possible in order to get that back out to you. But it is up to you if you want to put on the June 3rd or the June 17th meeting.
Corey, this is William. It does sound like we've all I think we just need to see the drawings. Like, yeah, I don't think we need to really discuss it that much more other than just seeing the drawings, but maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea if possible.
I feel that, so are we in agreement that we're all kind of in favor of the direction that we're headed as far as the a landscape area or amenity area, if done correctly, that would be that the building placement and the rest of it as far as the length of facade and being greater than 30 feet, that that's okay as long as this kind of fits within the realm of landscape / amenity area. I mean, I just want I want to make sure we're giving them good feedback that we are in the general agreement that it's really just wanting to see kind of what that is, but we can work through the rest of it.
Yes.
This is William. That's how I feel.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if we could see the plans, personally happy to look at them ahead of the quasi judicial meeting so that we can make a quick kind of informed blast at this. And I really don't think it has to be too much, but it's too hard to move forward without seeing something.
Okay.
I agree with everyone.
Hey, Corey and Carter, does it make any sense to move forward with that pedestrian, entrance, street-facing entrance as part of this discussion, and then just postpone the landscape part to later?
That's what
you could either.
Yeah,
you could proceed with that one and then come back for the second one.
That would be the direction I would hope for.
I mean, I would agree with your comments about being able to see the entrances from pretty much anywhere except that very short segment of that north wall if you're along that edge. So, I mean, I would be in favor of approving that.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else thinks the landscape is too integrated into that decision or not. But
that makes sense to me.
Let's put the landscape on hold for just a second, and let's talk about the pedestrian entrance. Any other comments on the pedestrian entrance? Negative or positive? Being none, I'm going to go ahead and recommend approval with the pedestrian. Let's go ahead and look through these findings, but see if I can. So the approved alternate meets the intent of the street-facing entrance regulations. The approved alternate conforms to the comprehensive plan. We can look at that in a minute. Pedestrian access point is easily identifiable, which is what we were just talking about, which I believe it is. Recessed or projecting entrance or building elements have been incorporated into the design of the building to enhance the visibility, which we believe it is. And the pedestrian route from the street and bus stop and other modes of public transportation to the entrance is safe, convenient, and direct, which it is. So can we look at some findings and maybe our policies, that's what I meant. Thank you. So I'm gonna have to do a little.
And Corey, I would say that these are the policies for Build 2, but a lot of them do relate to the street facing entrance as well.
Yeah, so LU 5.1.
UD 2.3.
2.3, yeah. UD 4.5. I'm going to go ahead and move to approve the pedestrian access as shown.
I'll second that. It's Chris.
Second from Chris. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, if you could raise your hand if you're on camera. If not, if you could go ahead and state your name. And okay, it looks like I have any opposed.
I agree.
Okay, opposed? None. Okay, so that's unanimous. So let's go back to, I think this is kind of against what we've been discussing with staff about what we should do with trying to separate these quasi-judicial from the others. But I feel like discussing this and what we have discussed, that we were kind of on a track with, we do agree with the general idea of this, which gives me, so I think if we can work through the minor. So if we can get some information prior and review this prior to our next meeting, and kind of make this quick at our next meeting, I would move to defer this to our, what do we say, June 5th meeting?
It'd be June 3rd.
June 3rd meeting. It's June 3rd. Do I need to have a motion for that, Carter?
Yes, I would make the motion to hold the item till June 3rd, date certain.
So I'm going to hold this open until the June 3rd meeting where we can have more information.
I can second that.
Second from Adam. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Birch and team. We'll look forward to seeing some more information on the 3rd.
Yeah. Thank you all. And thanks for your flexibility on hearing us on the 3rd. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and while I have you, Mr. Birch, AAD case number 2 that we had, just want a verification from you that I understand that this is your case as well, that you're looking to hold this, to remove this.
That's correct. So, yes, we just want to pull it from this agenda as a result of TC 1919. The block face requirements for townhomes have gone away, but we just want to get through that review with staff before we formally withdraw it altogether.
So do we need to leave this as an open item, or do we want to just close this out for?
Corey, I would just take the recommendation to take it off the agenda. Once we start discussing it, then it runs that 21-day clock. So
right.
If we were to actually just open it and vote on it, then you're discussing it.
Okay. We're not going to discuss it. Okay, so we have removed this from this case.
Yeah, the applicant had requested we remove it. So.
Okay, I request that we remove it. Okay, good. So we will look at AAD case number 3. This is AAD 9-21. It's 865 West Morgan Street. And I will go ahead and turn this over to Carter for the staff presentation.
Thank you. I'm not going to go through the intent because Charles just did for the last one for Build 2. But the location is 865 West Morgan Street. The applicant is here, can give more detail on the location and the request. But essentially, this is a request to develop a mixed-use building, 401 residential units and 9,000 square feet of commercial uses. So it's a little over 3 acres, a variety of zoning, CX7 urban general, CX7 urban limited with additional use, neighborhood mixed use, 4 stories urban, urban limited, and OX5 office mixed use, 5 stories urban limited as well. The portion of the site related to this alternate request is at the intersection of West Morgan Street and Triangle Drive. the portion that's zoned CX7 Urban General. And since this is a mix of frontages along West Morgan Street, we review it as each of those different frontages has to meet separately the requirements of that frontage. So in this case, the Urban General has a 70% build to requirement with a range of 0 to 20 feet along a primary street, in this case, West Morgan Street. In addition, since it is an intersection, it is subject to the 30-foot corner build to requirement. And for this portion that I mentioned, the applicant is proposing a 56% build to with the numbers there in front of you. And in lieu of the required building area, they're proposing an amenity area to make up the remaining width, essentially, of the street frontage along Morgan Street. The applicant will describe in a little more detail, but they propose an amenity area. It is also, this amenity area is actually overhung by building floors above that would be within the 0 to 20 foot build to. So this first story is actually stepped back along the first story. And we've seen this in other buildings as well. And staff looks at that the first floor being having to meet that build to requirement. So that's why we're here. And this also would play into the 30-foot corner build to requirement that the amenity area that they supply would satisfy being in that 30-foot corner build to. And unless you have any questions, I can turn it over to the applicant.
Any questions for Carter or for staff? Okay, being none, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Ken Thompson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that, Carter. Ken Thompson with J. Davis Architects, 510 South Wilmington Street, Raleigh 27601. I also have with me today is the two architects on the project, Robert Cox and Chris Hall. If we need if you have some questions for them during the debate period. So we'll start here with just a little general context of the site. And actually, Carter, if you could start with slide 2, the zoning one. So everyone's going to know this as the Charlie Goodnight site, and the little eyebrow that is in the corner on the bend of West Morgan Street. This is an assemblage of all the parcels there, and what this graphic describes is the various zonings that are across this parcel that we've cobbled together. It will require, a right-of-way closing of the eyebrow there on West Morgan, so that would be incorporated in part of the project. And as Carter mentioned, the area that we're here today for is the Urban General, which is at the corner of Tryon Hills and West Morgan. And Carter, if we could go back to the first page again. I almost called you Charles, apologize. So this is the overall site plan. It's 401 units. It varies between 4 and 7 stories. It has a ground floor commercial area of about 9,000 square feet, plus or minus, on West Morgan. The parking deck is on the south side of the site along the railroad, which is then wrapped by the apartment building, the mixed-use building on the east side of the site and the apartment building on the west side of the site. If you could zoom into the intersection a little, Carter. Thank you. So this is the area here. You can see we have 35.84 feet in the Urban General. That's where one of our parcel lines is. That's also a zoning line. And so, as Carter mentioned, the Urban General has a 70% requirement. And we have pulled the building entry back on the corner, and as stated in the comprehensive plan and in the downtown urban design and guidelines and the in table DT1, it specifically says that corners can be pulled back and entrances should be placed on the corners. So what we've done is the building is 6 stories in this area, if I recall correctly. I did not look that up before we started, but the ground level story on Morgan Street is where the entrance is to the residential portion of the building. And we've pulled that back so we have 4 stories above us, 4 to 5 stories above us of building. And actually, as you go around that corner, if anybody's been there before, you know the grade is pretty substantial. So from about where the doors are, when you get out to the building, the grade starts to wrap around towards Tryon Hill, down Tryon Hill at about 10%. So as you're standing on Tryon Hill Drive in that first 30 feet, there will be foundation wall. It just won't be heated occupied space. And actually, if we can maybe go to the grading plan, we can see that a little better. So there will be, in that first 30 feet, there will be some, foundation wall, which will, create the building face on the street. And, a few feet above it would be the open area at the entry of the building. And you can see the grade starts to go down pretty much right after our doors and runs down Tryon Hill fairly quickly. If we could advance to the next drawing, which is the blow up, I believe. I'll admit, this is my first appearance commission since COVID started, and just totally assumed I would be able to write on the screen like we do at the regular meeting. So a little more of a challenge here. So we did a simplified blow up here of the area, showing that in this little breezeway where our entry is going to be, if you're coming down the street, you would have a view into that space if you're driving from Hillsborough Street towards downtown. And you would also be able to see it as you were driving from downtown out. Also, if you're a pedestrian, you'd be able to be in there and see the same views in reverse. At the moment, we're in the buildings in schematic design, and the site plans are, in ASR. So our outdoor amenity area is just starting to be developed. But, we have a vision for it. And in this area, we're looking at, planter accessing the entry with planters on either side of the door. And then on the Tryon Hill side, a bench with some planters on either side as an accent on that side of the building. Okay, and I think we can advance to the 2 renderings. So this would be looking into that corner from the opposite side of the street. The grade on the building elevation is a little off, how quickly it falls around the corner. So it actually, that wall will probably be just a couple more feet taller on the corner than it's shown. And then if we advance to the next one just is more of a, our larger, which I didn't point out on the site plan, but over by the commercial area, this would be our larger outdoor amenity area and the vision for that area. Even though it's not part of the request, we just thought we'd share it with you today. We believe that, what we presented here today meets the intent of the Build to requirement, and we appreciate your time this afternoon. And we're available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I appreciate that. Any questions for the applicant? Being none, I will understand there's nobody from the public that wishes to speak on this as well. So we will go ahead and are there any other questions now for staff as well?
Sorry, this is William. This is the Charlie Goodnight site, correct? And where I'm assume that the old building is completely gone. That is correct.
Correct.
That is correct. I didn't want to point that out.
Yeah.
I can say that. Yeah, I can say that Charlie Goodnight's is will live on in some other form in some other building. To be determined.
And risk, to not risk completely going out of order as I've done in the past, I'm going to hold my comments until that portion.
I'll strike that.
Hey, Corey, I've got a question if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it looks like if you look at the plan of the corner, the blow-up plan of the corner, and then if you look at the renderings, they appear fairly different from each other. So that's got a landscape area, and I don't see where those pretty prolific columns come down in the corner. So I guess my question would be, which is more correct, the renderings or the plan?
I would go with the plan. The rendering is a vision.
Okay.
Ken, do you see that retaining wall, kind of the denseness of it going above the finished floor or the ground story there? You know, in that rendering there, it kind of shows plants or whatever. You know, do you see the denseness of that, or do you see some kind of a, you know, a guardrail or?
Yeah, to be honest, that'll be a foundation wall. The planters, this was from an earlier, those renderings were generated from an earlier version. They have not been updated, but the planter actually starts after that emergency stairwell that you see in the top of the graphic. So that'll be foundation wall there. It's at its tallest, it would be 5 feet. And the landscape area has been shown to accommodate the grade as we wrap around the corner. You know, a 12% slope in the amenity areas, you know, is not accessible. So we're going to need some kind of landscape area there to accommodate that. And then if you flip back to the renderings, the other thing you might notice is the building in the renderings is much closer to the back of curb than it really is in the plan. So again, we just add them as that's the vision of the area, and they're not, the details are not accurate in those.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, that retaining wall. I kind of like the idea of it staying low and that it does not go up past the ground floor story, and, you know, to become a 3 foot tall planter or something like that, and enclose that space even more. I kind of like the openness of it.
No, it'll be open with a rail, and there will be no planting there. It would just be the foundation wall. And as I said, at the back corner of it, you know, or the corner, the 40 foot down from Morgan, or maybe let's say where the N is, where it says 865 Morgan. Oh, there you go. Like where we have that 14-foot sidewalk label, the foundation wall there is about 6 foot tall. Yeah. And so it'll just be the foundation wall and then the railing above and then that space. So there wouldn't be any planting, and we have no intent of enclosing that in any manner that would, you know, make it come above the finished floor there.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, we'll kind of close it. Let's talk amongst the commission. Any thoughts, comments?
I'd say my initial comment or initial thoughts are, you know, they've cobbled together a number of different parcels, and they're kind of caught with, if you read the letter of the ordinance, that's what the ordinance is going to say. Just for this little sliver of that parcel, But if you look at the project in totality, it really, I think, does what the UDO is trying to accomplish. And on top of that, with, just pulling the entrance back, but the rest of the building holds that corner and really anchors the corner. I think the project addresses successfully what the UDO is trying to instill. So.
Yeah.
This is William.
Sorry, go ahead, Will.
Go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to agree with that, in a way, and say that there's enough information on the blow up plan, if that's what's accurate, to say that outdoor amenity area is functioning with the intent of the alternate. Although it's confusing trying to look at the rendering and the plan. I'm just looking at the plan now and trying to imagine the details that aren't there, but they do seem to meet the intent of the administrative alternate.
Yeah, this is William. I agree. I mean, it seems like everything meets the UDO, and maybe that's part of my problem. I'd be remiss if I didn't say how incredibly disappointed I am that the building's going away. I get it, and I know everybody's doing the best they can, but it's stuff like this that makes me want to leave this town forever and never come back, honestly. So I just wanted that on the record.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
That said, I think the architects have done a good job for what they're tasked to do. So.
Any other further discussion? We look at the findings. So the approved alternate meets the intent of the Build 2 regulations. I think we agree it does. The approved alternate does not substantially negatively alter the character defining street wall or established pattern. It's not harmonious with the existing built context. We agree. Change in percentage of building not occupied as the Build 2 area, increased setbacks does not negatively impact pedestrian access, comfort, or safety, which it doesn't. And the site area that would have otherwise been occupied by buildings converted to an outdoor amenity, which it is. So if we can look at our policies, substantiate it.
The LE 5.1.
UD 4.5.
DT 7.3.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve as outlined tonight.
I'll second that.
Second.
Who was that? Was that
Chris beat
Adam?
me.
Yeah, Chris.
Chris. Yeah, we have a motion and a second by Chris. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
I
go
don't
ahead,
want to see
Chris.
William Dodge leave town. William, don't leave because of this, man. You're too valuable to this town.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed?
Favor.
We have one.
Yeah.
Okay, motion is
voting. Yeah,
motion is approved. All right, thanks Ken and team on that. With that, that closes our business portion of the evening. And let's see, let me get to where I need to get to. Yeah, we'll continue with working group reports and any other business. Carter, would you like to give us a little update on the Sir Walter Raleigh Awards? I know they're coming around. It seems like we just finished them. Here we go again.
Well, my update is I don't have an update right now. As you know, Lee had left us. She was our Sir Walter coordinator for the last couple of years, so I need to get on that. And I've met with Corey and Candace and got some direction on next steps. So I think next step would be to share that information with the commission to verify kind of the direction on award categories and such, but we can get that the call out pretty quickly. I think once we have that initial information, looks like we're going to get some help from our communications folks and kind of planning the event. And I want to be hopeful that by the time this rolls around in late October, early November, we'll be able to have kind of large events, and that seems like that's the direction we're going. So we are planning for in person, but we will have a backup virtual just in case. But we'll have some help on actually event planning that's going to be kind of out of the UDC's office. So that's going to be helpful to us. But I'm happy to take specific questions, but I'd say look for an update very soon.
Thank you for that, Carr. I don't have any other business. Is there any other business that we need to discuss this time?
I will let you know, and this can kind of go under our business. And a few people mentioned the text change TC 1919 was approved, and council had a public hearing on that on Tuesday. And that is a text change that essentially gets rid of the administrative alternate process. And with an effective date of 30 days, we're looking at June 18th. So, any project that comes in after June 18th will definitely need to go with the new route of going to quasi-judicial. So everything you look at in terms of an alternative to the code will be quasi-judicial now. You're roughly going to have your transportation-related ones, which will still have help from our transportation department, and then kind of what we call our urban design or our site and building design alternates will, we will at the UDC continue to be the subject matter experts on that. So those will be quasi-judicial. And I did speak to Catherine Hill about this, but we'll probably have a little refresher on quasi-judicial proceedings and the differences with the new text change. So that's something that we probably want to spend some time doing the next couple of months before we see some of these come through with this process. But with North Carolina law and what's called permit choice projects that are in the hopper now can kind of elect to go either route. So we probably will still see some that are coming forward as administrative alternates. I think we're going to keep the format of having the quasi-judicial meeting once a month at the first meeting, and then the second being the non-quasi-judicial, just because of reality of organizing the meetings and notice and everything. But hopefully there won't be a lot of those, because I think that basically the rules are changing with TC 19 to lots more flexibility. So we might not see as many alternates come through, but again, they can kind of pick their adventure, choose their adventure, and how they want to bring it forward to you. But we'll have more on that in terms of training and an update and kind of a training on the TC 1919 changes.
Great.
I missed the last meeting. Any update on legacy project?
We don't right now. I think we had Jake was the person kind of coordinating that. I think we've got some short-term possibilities to kind of get the money that we have till June 30th into something, but longer term, we're going to be looking at another annual appropriation, plus our plan to use kind of some of the leftover money from the Sir Walter Raleighs of the past that have kind of accumulated to be a kind of a substantial number. So I think in a longer term, in the next fiscal year, we'll be able to access that money and do kind of a bigger project. We also have movement kind of on the, I don't know, I'm not sure if Charles is still here on the call, but the idea.
I'm here.
Okay. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about the placemaking strollway project that's coming forward, and our, kind of our maybe opportunities to kind of plug into that.
Yeah, sure. So there is tentatively, I think it's more than tentatively, there is being planned an open streets event from Chavis Park to Dix Park in October. That's going to take place mostly on Lenore Street with the connection from Lenore to Saunders Street. So South Saunders to Lenore, from Dix to Chavis is going to be an open streets event. The exact date is tentatively planned for October, I think 17th is what it is. It's a Sunday. Happens to coincide intentionally with an additional event that's going on at Dix Park that day. The date could change. It sort of just depends, and the length of the open street event itself could change. Right now, the idea is that it would be just one Sunday, but there is the potential, I think, to extend it maybe to a weekend or more. And the placemaking component of that part I mentioned is basically any degree of design interventions in the public right-of-way and adjacent properties that are participating to create, temporary public spaces. So anything from taking parking spaces downtown and temporary parklets and that sort of thing to looking at some of those sort of more residential character blocks of Lenore Street and thinking about space for retail uses, the food trucks, any sort of mobile retail, that sort of thing. Really, it's very open-ended at this point. And the thought was that, if the Appearance Commission would like to use some legacy funds or participate in some manner in this, it could help fund either, the design or construction of either a temporary placemaking component or maybe public art like you've done in the past. It's really sort of very open-ended at this point. Obviously, you'd have to decide how you're going to spend that money before your deadline. But if you'd like more information on that, we can probably have a separate meeting for the folks who are particularly interested in the legacy project. Any questions about any of that?
Who's managing the, I guess, the project and the funds?
Parks. And specifically, I think it's the Dix Park team. So Kate Pierce is sort of overseeing it at this point. But the open street event, like I said, is being coordinated with that other event that's happening at Dix Park. And I'm forgetting right now exactly what that's about. I want to say it's about retail. Will, I'm not sure if you know, but the idea, the hope is that this will create a lot of energy, getting folks downtown, east and southeast Raleigh, moving east-west into Dix Park, setting up what will ultimately be a permanent sort of strollway, for lack of a better word, of what it's being called right now from Chavis Park to Dix Park.
So Charles, does that mean there won't be any vehicles on the route throughout?
That's right. Yeah. So the entire corridor from Chavis Park to Dix Park on Lenore and Saunders will be closed to traffic, except for probably at least, at very minimum, but probably more likely, 2 north-south pairs that will stay open, probably Dawson and McDowell and Person and Blunt Street.
And will it be an event that people can, bikes and things like that will be easily, will it be easy for them to move through that? Is that going to be a focus?
Well, so we're sort of working with the parks team and transportation right now to figure out exactly how bikes will operate in this. It looks like for this temporary event, it may be more mixed. There may be potential to create some bike space, but I think the idea with this open street event is to get people to sort of slow down and use the space as more of a public realm opportunity for recreation than as a corridor. That said, the long-term goal is to use this as the primary east-west corridor from Chavis to Dix Park, at least north of Wilmington. And in that case, I think you're definitely looking at more substantial, probably separated bike infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like a street festival, but maybe not quite as dense.
That's right. Although I will say that in portions of it, in front of the Performing Arts Center, for example, there's probably going to be quite a bit of activity there.
Okay.
We're DRA is a part of that project too, and we applied for an asphalt. It's the name of the grant for some artwork as a part of it as well. I think there's a meeting about it next week. Does that sound right?
Yeah, there is. So we can, if y'all want to sort of talk amongst yourselves, and then I know deadline's coming up soon, but if you want to talk amongst yourselves about the legacy project or any other way to get involved in this project, just let Carter and me know, I guess, relatively soon, and maybe we can set up a meeting to sort of talk about this in more detail.
The only other thing I would potentially put out there, I got a coworkers working with the Black Main Street project in Raleigh. So they're thinking about how they can do some placemaking and some kind of interventions along Market Street.
That'd be cool. I'd love to see us support that.
Yeah, and I'm related to that. Some of you may be familiar with the South Park Heritage Walk. It's something that's been planned, discussed for I think many years now. And I think the hope is that the more permanent Dix to Chavis connector on Lenore and Saunders will incorporate a lot of the concepts of that South Park Heritage Walk. At least in that portion, the sort of more eastern portion.
Charles, have you heard any updates on potentially doing a design charrette for some of the Dix Park work?
Yeah, we need to, and sorry, I hadn't gotten back to you, Candace. The planning, the manager in the planning department, I think has just been juggling a lot, being pulled in different directions. Let me get back to her on how we can do a charrette. We did an internal charrette, so we've actually got a pretty good framework set up. So if she's okay with that, then I think we can get that going very quickly. But let me check with Sarah Ellis, and I'll get back to you ASAP.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Charles, I know I have a bunch of technical questions, but how are they getting across Western Boulevard? How is this?
So you go under on South Saunders.
Okay.
So yeah,
and then
turn there.
And then over on Lake Wheeler.
Actually, I think the event. Actually, no. That's something that I think Parks is to be frank, probably struggling with a little bit now, because the event that they're having on that day is actually taking place in the lawn. So once you get folks into Dix Park itself, you're still looking at a pretty significant bike or walk up the hill to the lawn. I think the idea is most people would enter Dix Park right there at the Greenway entrance, the very northeast corner of Dix Park. And
the one right at Lake Wheeler and South Saunders, or the one?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. When you say the lawn, are you talking about the big field or Flowers Cottage?
The big field.
Yeah, okay. So the open street thing is probably mostly focused on Lenore, I guess, then, huh?
It is, but it's an all-day event, so hopefully some folks will commit to spending a few hours downtown and take a nice stroll. And there's going to probably be a lot of food vendors, mobile retail, that sort of stuff. So hopefully people will be able to make a day out of it and make it all the way from Dix Park to Chavis.
On another note, I know the Deborah Meadow project's going on. Any chance that we see them for a courtesy review?
Yeah, we can certainly ask. Yeah, I know that they're definitely making their way through the design on that. I can reach out. I'm the project liaison for that from UDC, so I can certainly reach out to the city's project manager and the consultant project manager to see if they'd be up for doing that sometime soon. I have, you know, from what I've seen, it looks great, in my opinion. So I think you guys will be hopefully impressed by that.
Just got to get it funded.
That's right. That's right. It's incredibly complex, that project. There's so many moving pieces, no pun intended, but everything from future rail corridors to all sorts of connections here and there. Interesting project.
Yeah, well, if you could share some more details about anything you know with the Black Main Street project, I'd love to dig into that a little more.
Yeah, happy to.
All right, this is all good discussion. I think we could go on. There's a lot going on in the city. It's great. You know, even on the other end at Western and pedestrian bridges and all kinds of stuff going on. So it's great.
Maybe we can save some of the bricks from Charlie's Goodnight. Charlie Goodnight. Make something good. Jesus, that's depressing. Seriously,
It'd be nice
man.
to save more than
God.
that. I think you were right to
Jesus,
say something, William.
It's
It's like
it's
sad
almost
lives.
like
You
it's
never-
like
can't get it back.
yeah, but it's almost like are you complicit by being in the community? Are you John Kelly in Trump's White House to watch this kind of dumpster fire happen, or what? You know, I mean, it's sad, man. It makes me really sad. You know? I don't know. That's all I'll say about it. I wasn't being dramatic, though. I mean, like, seriously, I thought about it because of the development that's happened here recently.
Unfortunately, I think, you know, when you have out of town developers that don't understand the history and stuff, and they combine lots and over time they buy it all up and put it together and then they sell it.
I get why they do it. They're just
I mean, but they're not local.
I don't fault the architect. Yeah.
No, they just don't get our history, and that's why you kind of see that, and you see the building next to it. I mean, none of that, those apartment stuff were built or designed or built by local people. At least this one's designed by. But anyway.
Yeah, and the UDO, I think a lot of times encourages stuff like that too. So nice.
All right, I do not have, unless I'm missing something, we don't have any minutes to review either.
Not for this meeting, but you will next meeting.
Right. So if there is nothing else, I appreciate everybody, all the good comments today. I appreciate everybody's willingness to bump this case to our next meeting. Hopefully, that won't drag it on too much, but I think we'll get a better project at the end. And I appreciate some of you speaking up on that. And I think we'll have a better project at the end of the day. So
I think very consistent with what this commission's done previously on it. So credit for that.
Yep.
Quick question. Carter, are you guys hiring lease replacement?
Barely hear you, William.
Carter, are you guys hiring a lease replacement? Sorry, my earbuds died.
Hiring for a replacement, is that what you're saying?
Lee's replacement.
I sure hope so. I'm waiting for the approval on the position to advertise it. So we definitely want one.
Okay, and then also in the second item, I wanted to congratulate Catherine Hogan on the renaming of Sonic to Catherine Hogan Architecture today. So I saw that on Instagram.
I did not.
Congrats.
I didn't leave. We're the same people, but we just renamed the business. So
yeah. All right, thank you all.
Good deal. Appreciate it, y'all. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.